conjunction with the Dane County Board of Supervisors Oral History Project, this podcast series addresses the personal experiences of current and former board supervisors and the social and community context of the Dane County Board throughout the past 50 years. Each podcast in this series highlights a central theme that emerged in the interviews conducted for the Oral History Project. This podcast highlights the importance of collaboration between board supervisors and explores the evolution of board dynamics from the perspective of Oral History Project interviewees. Our discussion is guided by Peterson Thurlow, Dane County Board Chief of Staff.
I'm Peterson Thurlow. I currently serve as the Chief of Staff for the County Board. I've been in that role since 2012. Prior to that, from 1996 onward, I was the policy analyst for the board. So I've worked with 6 county board chair, and I've worked with innumerable county board members over the course of time. I think that board staff has expanded in recent years in part to really support the goals of the county board. We serve the entire spectrum of county board members, progressive, liberal, conservative, and libertarian, just as county board members in the state of Wisconsin run as nonpartisan office seekers. So too, we serve the entire spectrum.
And Elizabeth Doyle, District 1 Supervisor.
I'm Elizabeth Doyle, and I represent District 1 on the Dane County Board, which includes downtown Madison. I was first elected last year in the 2019 special election and was re-elected this year in the spring election. I serve on the Health and Human Needs Committee and was elected chair this term and also chair the Behavioral and Mental Health Subcommittee. I work for the Department of Health Services in their long-term care rate setting section. Through managing that, there definitely is a lot of intersection with more of the kind of health-related work that I've been doing on the county board. And prior to those roles, I actually served on the Verona City Council from 2013 to 2018. When I first ran for that, it was mostly conservative. There were 8 folks on the council, and most of them would identify as pretty conservative. Myself and 3 other more liberal folks really got a lot of experience with, working with people from different perspectives within that setting.
Karen and Elizabeth discussed the importance of the committee process for collaboration on the board.
The county has always embraced having a very representative government. Although we've got the fastest growing population in the state, we also have among the largest county boards in the country. We have 37 members. It's an institution that encourages collaboration, particularly within the committees, where you can have full discussion of specifics of a topic. The kind of crucible for coming to those kinds of agreements where people can move forward often happens in discussion in the committee.
I found that you can really make your policies better by talking to people who have very different viewpoints than you do, or even represent different stakeholders on some of these issues, because that can reveal maybe better ways of crafting policy or identifying potential opportunities for making policies better, and just creating more stakeholder buy-in from people throughout the county is just finding something that works for the majority of people so that it can be a long-standing policy and more people want to participate and support it and make those policies better.
Although the Dane County Board is a nonpartisan government body, board dynamics have changed significantly over the past 50 years. Former board chair Richard Wagner details how political ideologies have played a central role in shaping board dynamics. First, Wagner, who was elected to the board in 1980, outlines the diversity in political ideologies among board supervisors early in his service on the board.
When I got on the board, I had devised a political typology that probably had 6 different groups of supervisors. There were non-Madison moderates who came from small cities. There were some rural conservatives, mainly from the towns. There were also some rural liberals or non-Madison liberals out there. There were Madison conservatives, there were Madison liberals mainly on the west side, and there were Madison sort of progressives who were maybe ultra-liberals mainly on the isthmus. And those groups would vote different ways at different times.
Wagner served as board chair from 1988 to 1992. In addition to referencing his own experience, he also provides additional context in regard to the divisive board dynamics during that time.
The county board at that time was a very sharply divided group. As I mentioned, Jonathan Berry had created a consolidated conservative bloc out of what had been sort of separate groupings. And the liberals also consolidated more. There had been a group of moderates, mainly from small cities and a few West Side districts. But in time, the moderates sort of went away. So you only had liberals and conservatives. So you had this high political tension, which became a real training ground for folks, because you also had to encourage other folks to run for seats for the county board and help their campaigns. And many of us would go out and drop literature in districts that weren't our own, because our own were safe, but there were other districts that were in contention. A lot of partisan political skills were developed, and not just on the liberal side. Rick Skinrud, who was a rural conservative, ended up going to the legislature from Western Dane County because of sort of his network of rural conservatives and Republicans that he had built up. But you also then had Tammy go to the legislature. You had Pocan go to the legislature. And you had Therese Brousseau go to the legislature, who was also on the board with me. So you had a lot of people who got trained in sort of political skills and issues and legislative skills while they were on the board. And they took those skills with them back to their new offices when they got elected to the state legislature or even to Congress. You also had another political dynamic occurring in Dane County. Insofar as the seat of state government, you had a Democratic base over in the state capital. And so you got a number of people who decided they would go from the state level Democratic Party to the local county political system. You had people like Jonathan Berry, who had been a legislator, who became county executive. You had people like Rick Phelps, who actually ran against Joe Winnicke. They both came out of the state system. You had Kathleen Falk, who came out of the state system. And you had Joe Parisi, who came out of the state system. He had been county clerk, but then he went and was a state legislator. You had the fact that the state political system could over-dominate the local political system. So that was always another tension that was existing here in Dane County.
Lastly, Wagner examines the impact of county voting patterns on past and present board dynamics.
The other thing was that you had a remarkable transition that was happening here in Dane County in terms of its importance to the Democratic Party. I went back and looked at some data, and in 1970, Pat Lucey, who was the Democratic candidate for governor, got 6.8% of his Democratic vote from Dane County. Bob Olson, who was the Republican candidate, got 6.3% of his statewide Republican vote from Dane County. So even though Lucey carried the county 49,000 to 38,000, basically 10,000 difference, they were both getting substantial shares of their statewide support here. I went and looked at the 2018 election, and Tony Evers got 220,000 votes in Dane County compared to 69,000 for Scott Walker. So you had a tremendous change from sort of a tightly divided county to an overwhelmingly Democratic county. Those numbers meant that he got 16.6% of his statewide vote from Dane County. And that's a big difference from 6.8%. Walker, interestingly, still got 5.3% compared to Olson's 6.3%.
Despite shifts in political ideologies, collaboration plays an essential role in the function of the board. United States Representative Mark Pocan, and former board chair Sharon Corrigan discuss impactful working relationships with fellow supervisors.
I'm Mark Pocan. It was probably one of the more agreeable areas as far as for a while we had a conservative county board chair, for a while we had a progressive. Now these days you pretty much only have progressive county board chairs because the demographics have changed in Dane County. We used to get together afterwards, go out for a beverage, I'll say it that way, although I think you know what beverage I'm talking about. That was congenial, and you do it across the ideological lines and get to know people across the ideological lines. I had great respect for people like Don Heiliger, who has since passed, and others who just were conservative. We might disagree on issues, but you could get together and have that relationship, which was important for getting other things done.
I'm Sharon Corrigan. I think there's, lots of times of, getting together for coffee to talk about maybe a specific issue or talking on the phone or, going out for a drink after a board meeting to just chat with a few people and having a chance to get to know people as people. I just enjoy people who want to make change or who are committed to making their communities better. A lot of the people on the board, we may not be the people that you would choose to go out to dinner with or be a lifelong friend, but there's just this camaraderie of people who are in this together and who are committed. There are very different personalities on this board and have been over the years I've been on it, but I've really enjoyed getting to work with committed individuals who are funny and who are serious about their work too. It's been a wonderful experience to really connect with some terrific people who work hard for our community and don't get a whole lot of recognition for it.
For more information about the policies and projects referenced in this podcast, please check out the Oral History Project report located on the Dane County website.